Hello, and welcome to the Chronicles of a Dreamworker, a podcast dedicated to exploring what happens on the other side when we close our eyes. I'm your host and creator, Katie Thompson. I'm a lifelong intuitive and creative storyteller. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, mother, wife, and advocate. I'm also a dreamworker. In this episode, I want to talk about some interesting signs, symbols, and intuitive experiences I've had recently, both in waking life and in my dream work. One thing I love about the way the universe communicates with us is that literally anything and everything can be what I call a wink or a message from the universe. And often I find that we overcomplicate things. We may be looking for specific patterns or put emphasis on one symbol or sign when the universe is actually speaking to us in an entirely different way. I used to put a lot of emphasis on evidentiary intuitive work. I needed quite a bit of validation when I began exploring this side of myself, and sometimes still do. It's always nice to have confirmation we're on the right track, right? I feel very fortunate to have had so many experiences in my life that I cannot explain, to put it simply. In all of this, I've also learned that sometimes you have to believe to see. An absolutely lovely experience for me happened very recently and involves this podcast. So, a few episodes back, we talked about some intuitive experiences I've had at historical sites. And one in particular was at the gravesite of John Lawrence at the Lawrence family gravesite at Mepkin Abbey Monastery. In the episode, I shared how I had this incredibly playful and inviting experience with this beautiful monarch butterfly at the site. There were these two gorgeous, large, blooming pink azalea bushes that were just teeming with bees and life. But it was such a transformative moment for me that even after sharing that experience here on the podcast, I had intuitive hints echoing in my mind. This one particular monarch butterfly, my goodness, it was gorgeous, and I had so much fun interacting with it. It gave me quite a lot of time to work with it as well. I was taking pictures, and it spent a good minute around me instead of just immediately flying off. So after recording that episode, I wanted to know more about this monarch butterfly. So I did some research, and sure enough, monarch butterflies are considered by many cultures around the world to represent the souls of those who have already passed on. To me, this is a great example of how the universe can use nature to help us communicate and connect with those in other realms. It is also a great example of how simple and accessible yet abundant communications from spirit can be. Everything has meaning, everything. Another aspect of signs that I love are that they're very specific to the person or soul being communicated with. As much as I love nature, the universe will also use people, places, numbers, anything to communicate, really. And we have been told to write these things off as coincidences, so we very easily dismiss some of these signs. That brings me to another point that I want to make about signs and symbols, and that is that it's truly about how you're seeing or experiencing them and how they make you feel. You know instantly in your gut what that is. Let that knowledge grow. Trust it. Start opening yourself up more to the universe through meditation, yoga, being in nature, or whatever it is that helps you feel connected. Foster that relationship you have with the universe, and you'll know and feel what is being shared with you. Now, let's talk a bit more about signs and symbols and dream work specifically. I had no idea that my lucid dreams were full of messages and symbols meant to help guide me through my experiences. Until I shared a recurring dream I kept having during an intuitive reading, I really wasn't sure what was going on. As I described the dream and the intricate, vivid details I was having every night, I was then validated by spirit in the reading. The intuitive I was working with was able to recount some very specific details that I hadn't shared, and gave me some information on things that I hadn't really noticed in the dreams, but kept reappearing in the dreams as well. So it's important to try to take notice of every detail, especially those that keep reappearing in your dream work. For me, one recurring mode of transport in my dreams are elevators, and the different floors that I ascend to also seem to correlate with where I am on my journey. For instance, when I started having these dreams, I began going to the ninth floor, which is also my life path number in numerology. From there, I've ascended as I felt myself embrace my true life's mission more here in the waking world. As I've embraced my spirituality and developed my practice and have just sought a deeper connection with the divine, I've gone to higher and higher floors on those elevators. And there have been times when spirit has told me when it was time to ascend to a higher floor. And again, I'll see those progressions in my waking life, such as achieving goals or finding peace with certain challenges I've faced. As I've grown spiritually, the floor numbers have too, and it's been remarkable to experience. I also come across a lot of sliding glass doors in my dreams, and I was told that these are specifically placed in my dreams to remind me that I have a choice every night on how I embrace my own presence and my consciousness. I can make the choice to stay in or step out. Another important aspect about these specific doors are that while they open for me, they don't always open for everyone in my dreams. So I may be walking along, having a conversation with someone, maybe even a family member. And as we approach the doors, I enter and then I turn to see that the doors haven't stayed open for them. It's also very interesting for me to note the context and locations within my dreams when this happens. You can also have animals symbolically or directly interact with you in your dream work. Recently, I've had a group of about seven or so small animals that have tagged along in some of my dreams. I've also been paid visits by pets that have already passed on, which is always lovely. And sometimes those dreams can have symbolic meanings, and sometimes they're just visits to say, I love you. Some frequent animal symbols that may appear in your dreams may include snakes or birds or even insects. And it's important to remember as you try to interpret these signs that there are many different cultural beliefs on what these animals represent. But again, the most important thing to focus on here is how it made you feel. Sometimes that alone can be the message. And my best advice is to try to write these significant moments or interactions down. Try to keep track of their occurrences, the frequency, and what situations they appear in. Sometimes you can connect the dots in your waking life or simply notice a pattern on paper, and that can help you see what exactly your dreams are trying to tell you at night. If you'd like to work on deepening your relationship with the divine through dream work and building that connection between your conscious and dreaming self, try this simple exercise. Before you go to sleep, try to visualize a specific object in your mind, like a red bird or a blue door. Pray and ask Spirit to show you this symbol in your dreams. It may take a night or two, but it usually will appear, which is super exciting, of course. But it's important to remember the context in which your object appears. What message was being conveyed to you at that moment? What was occurring in the dream when you saw the sign? Where were you? Were you alone? What were you doing? And most importantly, how did it make you feel when you saw it? These details can be just as important as the object itself. So try to remember and write down as much as you can when you wake up. Then take time to reflect, meditate, and even research what some of this information could mean for you. That concludes this episode of Chronicles of a Dreamworker. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear from you and hear more about your dreams, so drop me a message at dreamworkerchronicles@gmail.com. We'd love for you to like and subscribe if you're catching this on YouTube, and be sure to follow along on your favorite podcast platform. You can also learn more about me and my intuitive work at ktthompson.com. Wishing you sweet dreams. Chronicles of a Dreamworker is a Black Swamp production.